Hey, Coach Leanne, I believe we are live today.
Hey, Coach Susan. So honored to be here with you today. Hi,
Good to be with you.
friends.
Well, hello. And we've got Instagram here as well. So, welcome Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're tuning in. You are welcome. Glad to have you here.
Susan, we are here to talk about a pretty big topic today.
Another big topic, ladies.
Another big topic. So, our topic for today is how to respond wisely when someone hurts you. I don't know about you, Susan, but other people's words can hurt me.
Yeah. Is that old saying true? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Is it true?
Okay, I'm going to sit here, stand here, shout here, and say, absolutely not. That is a belief that we have held. It's an old poem from, I don't even know where it originated, but all I know is it is an absolute lie. I believe our words can create our worlds inside of our minds, and our very souls. And so, what about you, Susan? What do you think? Here, I just boldly said, I think it's a lie without even pausing for a minute.
Well, I think we both thought about that before, and we see in our community how harmful words are. Words within our own minds and words from other people do end up causing physical harm as well, right? When we talk about abuse, which we often talk about, we're not talking about abuse necessarily today, but emotional hurts become physical hurts at some point, and words definitely do hurt.
Well, they do hurt. And not only do they hurt, but sometimes they harm.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on that. You and I just both talked about those H words, right? About hurt and harm.
Yeah. Can you define those a little bit? Because I think that's a really important place to go today.
Oh, my goodness. Well, hurt is, my feelings are hurt. Like it's a boo boo, it's an owie. Maybe it's my ego. Maybe it's my pride. Maybe it is, my feelings that I can be in a tsunami with, right? It rubs up against my values. It rubs up against my character, my virtues, maybe even my ideals. So maybe an example would be, let's see. So when someone hurts me, they could say something like, Leanne, I really don't like the way you spoke to me just now. Okay. That could hurt me because it hurts my value of being warm and generous and kind and loving. So then that would hurt me. That would hurt me a bit. It would cause me to push a pause button and say, oh, that was so not my intention. Okay. Now, if somebody harms me with their words, it would be more name calling. More name calling. So, Susan, I'm just going to pause there for a minute. And what are some of the name calling that you feel like would be really harmful to people that we have heard over time?
Well, I think when we begin to put labels on people that aren't true, when we call out character traits that aren't true, negative things in them that aren't true, when we begin to kind of gaslight them for who they are, right? Creating a narrative about somebody that is not true, and even spreading that. So saying it to them, but also you could be spreading that far and wide about somebody. Yeah, what comes to mind for you?
Well, like I said about, the hurt, it can be hurtful when somebody gives me loving feedback about a behavior that I have in me that is less than dignified. Okay. So a child might get hurt feelings when their parent is firm with them. Okay. Harm, on the other hand, like you said, Susan, maligning somebody's character, labeling, ladies, harm is damage. Harm is destructive. And
Mhm.
harm is, can I even say injury to your well-being,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
you as a person, where it injures you physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway, so harm involves malice.
Malice. Yeah. And yeah, we can talk also about the difference between intent and impact.
We got a lot of words here.
Yeah. We can bring that in here as well, because somebody may or may not have the intent to harm you, but there's definitely an impact to you as well.
Well, there is, Susan, and people don't realize the impact that they have on other human beings. I don't realize the impact I have on others sometimes. Sometimes I am not as self-aware as I would like to be, especially oh, when someone's words are harming me.
Mhm. We can get reactive, can't we?
I sure can. I think you're a
You're
lot
owning
calmer.
that.
Susan, I think that you're a lot calmer than I am. I can get reactive when the words are coming at me like fiery darts.
Mhm. I think we all can. That's definitely true of me as well. It just doesn't happen to me as much anymore, as it used to. And so I don't have to practice that as much. And maybe you do.
Thank you, Susan, for that. And, here's the deal. Practice makes progress. And, when we are given opportunities in our lives with people that we care a lot about to learn to speak up and speak out wisely, sometimes those are gifts and sometimes they can feel like a burden. And we see and we hear you in that. And I do still have people that speak hurtful words to me, and I can speak them to others if I'm not being wise in my approach.
Mhm.
And so, friends that are joining us here, I see there are many of you all over the globe that are here with us. When you heard Susan and I talk about the difference between hurt and harm, what thoughts do you have on that? What thoughts do you have on that? I see our beautiful support person here with us typing into the chat. Drop into the chat. Maybe what have you experienced more of, friends? Harm or hurt?
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be in, maybe it's back from, kindergarten when somebody kicked you in the shin and ran away. Or it was as early or as recent as this morning when someone didn't honor your humanity.
Mhm. Mhm. I love how you put that. Didn't honor your humanity. And that causes real hurt and harm, I think.
It does. I think so too, Susan. Good
Mhm.
afternoon, friends. So, Susan, you brought up something pretty powerful about the impact and intent of our words. And so, if we're here to talk about how to respond wisely when someone hurts you, we're not talking about, physical abuse right now, right?
Mhm.
Okay. We're going to talk about the power of words. Or are we not? Where are we going today, Susan? There's a lot of ways that we could go because now that I'm reading our title out loud again, I'm like, well, it's more than just words. It's more than just words
Mm.
that can harm or hurt. There can be a lot of actions, including boundaries that can hurt.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So I'm even seeing in the chat hurt, but how do we respond to it? So you're here with all those. I see all your question marks. How do we respond to it? So you're hungry for some help here to respond to the hurt. Leanne just brought up the word boundaries. That
Mm,
might be part of it too. How do you respond wisely? Boundaries is a word that comes to mind. Also, regulation comes to mind
yes.
as a tool. What other words are coming to you?
Mm, I think those are great, Susan. I want to hear from our listeners. I see I have experienced both harm and hurt. And when, and this listener here with us today, part of our community, talks about suffering. So maybe your husband or your kiddos or people that are significant in your life suffer from mental illness. Then how do you navigate that? There's so many layers to the hurt that we can experience that's coming from other people and that's coming at us. So, when I think of the difference between hurt and harm when it comes to boundaries, boundaries can sting sometimes. When somebody says to me things like, our conversation is done right now, Leanne, we need to revisit this when you're a little calmer or after we both settle down, that can sting a little bit to my ego. That can sting. It's protecting their peace. And I've had to say it to other people, right? It's protecting peace when it might hurt a little bit. Mm-hmm. Boundaries become harmful when they are used to manipulate other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in this instance, Leanne, you're talking about other people's boundaries impacting us, but also we have our own boundaries, right? We can have emotional boundaries, we can have physical boundaries, all kinds of boundaries that can help protect us, that keep us insulated from harm. It may not stop feelings of discomfort, right? So hurt is an emotion of discomfort that we don't like. But harm, our boundaries can keep us from harm. Even with the words, right? Is that we can almost have a shield around us that causes those words to bounce off, right? Instead of penetrating and having that deep impact, is we can sort of see them and push them away. That doesn't belong to me, or I'm not taking that in. I'm not going to allow that to harm me.
Susan, that is so great. So there are some questions about boundaries in the chat. So, we work a lot with women who have perhaps lived limited boundaried lives or limitless, boundaryless lives because of the way that we were brought up. Mm-hmm. Inside and outside of the church, inside and outside of our families of origin. And then we have walked into relationships, whether at work or at home, where we consistently have put everyone else first at the expense of ourselves. And God calls us to love one another also as we love ourselves, Susan. And we forget that part. Mm-hmm. The loving ourselves. And so for me, when I look at even our topic for today, when I think about how to respond wisely when someone hurts you, I know that if I give a knee-jerk reaction, it's oftentimes not the wisest response I could give. One way that I can invite wisdom in is we can ask God for it. Mm. He is so willing and ready to give us his wisdom so that we can connect with other people in ways that are honoring to him and to ourselves and even to the other person who might be hurting us. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it takes that pause. We often talk about how important the pause is. Which I think when you're hurt, the natural response is to react, to protect yourself, that survival mode, reaction, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, those things tend to come up when we're hurt, right? And it takes that intentional pause. And then I love, you said, inviting in God, right? Is accessing the Holy Spirit within us. To bring some semblance of calm, or to remember who we are in Christ, to remember who we want to be as people, even when we're hurt, is so important, right? And to take that breath. I always imagine myself breathing in the Holy Spirit and exhaling hurt or harm or reactivity, right? Getting rid of that, just so you can connect with your the higher functioning of your brain, right? So that you can be wise It's hard to access your prefrontal cortex and be wise when you're in reactive mode. And
Indeed,
then,
Susan, I love that you brought that up because sometimes, I just remind myself, ladies, those of you who are watching, touch back here at the back of your neck, right? This is such the reactive part of you. So I often I'll touch that little area back here at am I right, Susan? I think I'm right on the whole brain thing that, our reptilian brain, our reactive spaces and places are back here,
Mhm.
right? It's the lower part. And so when we want to engage the prefrontal cortex, there are reasons why the thinker goes like this, the famous statues.
It's
There
true.
are reasons, right? Why we squeeze sometimes if we're under tension. I've got my glasses on, but if we're under tension and if we just do this for a minute, it helps us get back in our bodies.
Mhm.
And so I know for me, there was a period in my life, Susan, where I was more in reactive mode. And I was learning, you talked about different regulation techniques a bit ago, and I learned one. I can't demonstrate it while I'm here, but I can tell you about it. And I haven't thought about it in a really long time until you just brought that up.
Mhm. Oh, share.
Okay. So, ladies, I want you to imagine that I'm in the cat position on all fours. Okay. I put my head down on a soft surface on carpet and I roll. I roll my head on that soft surface from here all the way back to here, right back here to my crown. And it activates, it squeezes, and it reminds my brain to get back online again, to get out of this space
Mhm.
and up into the front. And it takes a boundary in order for me to do that. I have
Mm.
to stop and pause, give myself some breathing room and say, "Hey, I need just a minute." And back when I was in the midst of a lot of reactivity in one of my relationships, I had to do that. I had to pause, I had to go into the other room, and I had to roll. I just had to roll my head. And I did it even in the middle of the night, Susan, when I wasn't sleeping well.
Mhm.
Because sometimes when people hurt us, the thoughts don't go away in a minute. Because sometimes when other people don't acknowledge the fact that they've hurt or harmed us with an apology or even a validation, we can hold it. We can hold it in places and spaces that can cause rumination even in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
And so, what will we do then? Responding wisely doesn't just mean in the moment in front of the other person. Because if we don't learn to respond wisely and invite God in at every moment, those thoughts, the hurts can come in sideways and catch us off guard, especially
Mhm.
during the holidays. Anybody else get easily triggered during the holidays because of losses or changes or transitions in your life?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, I love it. You're talking about boundaries with yourself. I won't allow myself to ruminate on those things that are hurtful and harmful to me. And that's a protection of yourself. And that's, I see many of you commenting about boundaries. You're just learning about boundaries. Boundaries are protection for yourself, right? They're limits and guidelines to keep yourself safe, right? And so you don't need anybody else to get involved with your own boundaries. It's really about you. And it can be even in the middle of the night, like Leanne sharing, having boundaries with yourself to regulate and to think wisely and invite the Lord in and to not allow your mind to go to those dark places.
Well, and Susan, I love that you brought that up. It's just such a pleasure to be here with you today, Susan, and everybody that's here. We really appreciate you. And you brought up something, our minds can go to dark places. And, I love this question that just came. How do you stop yourself from replaying all of the hurts? It can be on replay. And, thank you, sister, for asking that question. Just write even in the chat. I just saw that. And so here's the deal. In our ministry, we do real conversations, right? Just like these lives, we're talking about some really hard topics sometimes, some things that hurt you, that harm you, and then ways to heal. And one thing that you can do to stop yourself from ruminating and replaying is to join together in a community with women who want to do the same thing. And we have that opportunity coming up for you in January. 1 month from this week, we are beginning our 6-month group coaching program called Empowered to Change. And this is where we invite the Lord in to help us gain wisdom on how to communicate and speak up and speak out in ways of wisdom instead of out of fear. And we would just love, Susan and I are both coaches on Leslie's team. Diana is another one of our team coaches. And we have groups that have a space for you. If this is resonating with you and you would like to learn how to respond wisely, this is something we do every other week for 90 minutes on Zoom, isn't it, Susan? We get to invite women to level up their communication, to change the way that they navigate emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, all the things. Mm-hmm. And we do that in community together.
Yeah, I love that. We do want to make today useful for you by giving you some tools, but we dive deeper when we go into the group time about a lot of these topics that you're bringing up today: boundaries, regulation, who do you want to be, right? As a follower of Christ, these are things we dive deep into, and it's I love this group because we're together for 6 months, and it is so precious to see how women support each other and encourage each other, and to get to know not only each other, but to get to know ourselves even better. It's such a beautiful experience. And we like to focus on the experiential part of it in our group time, 90 minutes every other week, as Leanne said, for 6 months.
And it's really powerful. And if if this resonates with you and you're like, yeah, I really want to learn this, we're only together here, for about 40 minutes, we're going to be chatting it up and we're going to answer some questions. And we can only do so much right here. We want to give you so much value and invite you into an opportunity. I don't know about you, but I would love a quick fix to my relationship challenges. We all have them. If we're in relationships, we have challenges, no matter who it is that we're navigating relationships with. And God is I believe he's calling us girls, Susan, to start to do things a little bit differently, to bring healthier conversation into the picture, even when we have hurts. Even when we have hurts, we can do it a little bit differently. Just because we've always responded in a certain way doesn't mean that we have to continue to respond moving forward in that same way. We can learn new things. Okay, there's another myth I'd like to kick to the curb, Susan. Just like the sticks and stones one that we brought up at the front side of this. What about you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
Right. I think we can continue to learn, and God puts us in a place to learn, right? He allows suffering to come to us, and that's a place to grow our faith, to grow our maturity, to learn more about ourselves. I do think through a lifetime, we are continuing to learn new tricks.
Well, we are. And, even just approaching this holiday season, there are, how many of you have your Christmas shopping done? Type into the chat. Have you gotten all your gifts purchased for other people yet? Just type in it. Let us know. Where are you at? How are you doing with that? And yes, I'm going someplace with this question. Okay, so I'm seeing we've got some yeses and we've got some no's. Okay. How about you, Susan? While we're waiting for the chat to fill, Are you feeling complete and ready for next week?
I'm not complete yet. I'm on my way. I'm not quite there yet.
Okay. Me too. Me too. Yeah, Tara, I love this. If you want to be teachable, you will be teachable. And so here is the gift.
Mhm.
Do you know that one of the greatest gifts that you could ever give back to God? Remember, it's his birthday we're celebrating. Christ coming to earth, right? One of the greatest gifts that you can ever give back to God is to live a life, a Christ-centered life. And oftentimes in the middle of hard relationships, it's hard to be Christ-centered. We can get me-centered, or we can get protection-centered. And we can forget that we are secure and safe in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are learning to respond wisely, it's to remember that, to frame for the boundary. For my mind, it's I am secure and I am safe in Christ, and I'm looking at him and keeping my focus on him. And so I want to bring a teachable spirit as my gift to the Lord. I don't want to be closed-minded. So as you're thinking about the gifts that you are giving others, what is the gift that you will give yourself? What is the gift that you will give back to God for giving you breath today?
Mm.
And, I want a gift from him. I want to continue to ask him for wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to lavishly give us that gift. So then what is wisdom, right? What is wise? How do we know that we're being wise as we respond, Susan? Because, here we're talking about how do we respond? We've been chatting here for about a little over 20, almost 25 minutes, right? So how do we know that we're being wise and not foolish when we respond?
Yeah, great question. How do you even know? How do you discern that? And I don't know that there's a quick fix. I noticed somebody in the chat said, quick fix, please. We do want it to be a quick fix. But what you're talking about right now is really knowing God, knowing the word of God, knowing what he's calling us to, knowing who he's created us to be. Those aren't quick fixes to just know in an instant. It does take nurturing a relationship with him, nurturing a relationship with ourselves. And I love that you're bringing up this idea of security. This has been something on my mind this holiday season, is that I can often find comfort and security in things other than God. And it's a real call to me to find my security in him, right? To go to him when I have hurts. And feel safe and secure in my relationship with him. And so maybe that's true for you all as well. I love the Peanuts, the Peanuts cartoon. I have just recently heard in a couple of different places about how the creator of the Peanuts was commissioned to do a holiday special. And he would not do it unless he put in the part about the Christmas story. My favorite character in the Peanuts is Linus. My whole family, my kids and I, we are blanky people. And what I learned about that is when Linus gives his talk about the Christmas story, and he says, Charlie Brown, let me tell you what it's all about. He's holding his blanket as he's talking, and when he says, fear not, he drops his blanket. And that was just such a powerful thing to me as a blanket person and somebody who finds security in things, that's not where we find security in. And there's so much comfort in that.
There is, Susan. Thank you. I love that. I'm a Linus girl too. I am a blankie person. I have them everywhere. I sleep with a weighted blanket. And so that's part of my safety and security. It's one of the reasons why I love to go to bed early. And so, here's another, knowing yourself, whether you're a blanket person or not a blanket person. Do you have a favorite George Schultz character or Charles Schultz character? Do you have, in the Peanuts, who do you relate to? So ladies and gentlemen, we sometimes have some guys here watching too. Okay. So I don't want to dismiss that, but getting to know ourselves is really important. And we getting to know ourselves and honor the facts that we have strengths and we have weaknesses. And, just like Linus showed the example of dropping the blanket, he knew where his strength came from. And do we? And do we know where our wisdom? I love some of these comments. Your amygdala is being blown away today. I am so happy to hear that. For those of you who don't know what an amygdala is, it's about the size of an almond, and it's a small little sensory organ. If you go in, I believe this is right. If you go in through the front of your nose and the side of your ear and your fingers were to match up, that's about where your amygdala is. It's the size of an almond, and it has incredible superpowers. Incredible superpowers. Some of those superpowers are for good, and some of those superpowers that the amygdala has can keep us stuck and afraid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Love it. Okay.
Some great comments here. So I think that's resonating with a lot of people. Just to think about, where do you find your security? What is it in? Sometimes it's in other relationships. Perhaps you find security in being married or having a close relationship to a parent or a child. If some of you are talking about people pleasing and not having boundaries, sometimes that's how you find security.
Right. Well, and here's the other, if we could be so bold as to share and really provide you with some value, learning to respond wisely when somebody hurts you could make you feel uncomfortable. Learning can make us feel uncomfortable. When I was growing up, Susan, my mother had a daycare in our house, and there was a little boy. It's so fun when we get together. This is why I love the power of group work, as well as not coming on here live by myself. And the fact that you women are engaging with us is helping me with some recall of a past memory. So if I might share a little bit of a story about uncomfortableness.
Please.
Would that be okay? All right. So when I was growing up, I grew up in a household where my mom ran a daycare. So I had, for better or for worse, I had, 10 to 12 other pseudo siblings in my home every single day, of all ages. My mom ran a daycare for many, many years, home daycare. But we had this one sweet little boy in our daycare. And when he came to us, he wasn't walking very well at all. And he was struggling with his physiology. He had some physical limitations. He was hurting. So he couldn't stand well. They took him to the doctor. He ended up getting braces for his legs. And he had to keep those braces on all the time. And this is back in the day. I'm going to date myself, but this is like the 1970s, friends. Okay. And so he had this, it was a metal brace. It wasn't the soft, easy braces that some of children who are challenged deal with right now. But they had to put him in a contraption that would help his hips get back in alignment so that he could learn to walk properly. Right. And, it was interesting when this sweet little boy came in, when he first got it on, he was really uncomfortable. He would cry, and he would scream. Right. And then he got used to it, and he learned to maneuver with wisdom. His legs, he would swing them around. He would get to where he could stand up with his brace on. And I think that as we realize that sometimes we haven't always responded wisely, and other people don't respond wisely to us, we very well might need that safety and security of some boundaries in order to help us navigate well. And it might make us feel uncomfortable, but it will protect ourselves, just like it did for him. If his parents hadn't have done that for him, he would have had deformed hips and legs the rest of his life. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't want a 2025 where my thoughts and my emotions and the words that I speak are deformed.
And out of alignment.
and out of alignment.
Mhm. And sometimes we need that brace to help train so that we get back in alignment, right? And this group experience may be that brace for you, that place where you can come and train where it's safe, so that you can be in alignment with who you want to be and who God is calling you to be. What a great example.
Indeed. Well, thank you for bringing that up and even giving me an opportunity. And thank you, Lord, for the examples. This is the other part of Empowered to Change and group work that's so powerful. And even gathering here on Facebook together is that when one person shares a story, it helps to ignite a learning that the Lord has deposited in you that the Holy Spirit can use to train and grow us, because we can learn to respond differently than we have been accustomed to doing and not be as reactive. We can learn that. And so we can act out of our wise and our unwise parts of us. And so I know for me, Susan, if we're to get like really practical, sometimes if I want to respond wisely, I am not going nuclear unless I have to for some reason. And, my grandchild's running out in the street to get a ball and they're about ready to get hit. I'm going to be nuclear. I'm going to yell, I'm going to scream, stop, and I'm going to chase that child. I'm going to react. That would be wisdom to help that child best to be safe. On the other hand, if someone's coming at me with hurts or even harm, there may be times I do that. And then there may be an opportunity for me, if I'm in an adult conversation, that perhaps I could watch my tone and my approach a little bit differently. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it takes a little bit of discernment to be able to recognize the offense for what it is. And are we talking about a one-off or are we talking about a pattern? I think that makes a difference as well. And for next steps, I think it matters as well what we're talking about. And also the type of relationship you have, the type of person you're dealing with. I noticed a comment in the chat says, could this be gray rocking? So wisdom is sometimes gray rocking, right? But not all the time. And so it takes some discernment to know. And I would say I wouldn't move directly to gray rocking. I would try the other steps first of resisting to be defensive yourself, to giving up the need to be right, communicating effectively and assertively about the hurts in order to bring healing to the relationship would be the goal. If you're in a relationship with somebody who's highly self-centered and highly immature, and you have seen the pattern that those things don't help, they maybe even cause more harm to you or open you up to more criticism and harm, then gray walking may be your wise answer. But I wouldn't start there.
Right. There are so many other methods. And we go into communication during hard conversations in our group coaching program. And I'm just going to speak out the link for those of you who are curious to find out more about our 6-month program. Spots are filling. They will sell out. And so if you go to leslievernick.com/change, you will have an opportunity to find out about all of our different group coaching opportunities. We have them Monday through Saturday, friends. We have at least one group every single day for 6 different days. So choose the time that works well for you, and you will gather with 15 other women and one coach for the next 6 months. And, I'm thinking, Susan, to July for a minute, right? And I would love to do another live in July. How have you learned to speak wisely when someone else hurts you? And follow up with all of the women that have chosen to be in Empowered to Change, because you will not be the same woman. You will respond differently after 6 months of doing your own personal work. You
Mhm.
will. And that's something that we have a privilege of walking you through. And sometimes when we do our group, Susan, we have opportunities to do some role playing and give some examples about how to respond differently. We get to do that. And sometimes they can get a little funny and serious all at the same time.
Mhm.
All at the same time. And so, ladies, I just want to encourage you to think about a situation where someone hurt you, which, we've talked about different strategies, right? Self regulation, boundaries, speaking up, walking away. There's
Mhm.
lots of different things you could do. What approach have you taken when somebody hurts you?
Great question. And while they're entering that, I see a couple of different places, people asking, "What is gray rocking?" Gray rocking is basically, detaching. It's being very, gray, uninteresting, right? Surface level interactions, nothing deep or exciting, not engaging. It's a way to detach from destructive people. It's still being kind and respectful, and yet very just surface, boring level responses.
Right. I have a gray rock right here, Susan.
Oh, you do? Uh-huh.
I do. I have a gray rock. I keep it. And on one side, it has a beautiful, encouraging word, grace.
Uh-huh.
On the other side, it's just plain. So, for me, gray rock, this rock just sits here. It's not moving. So this is another thing with gray rock. You're going to be immovable.
Mm.
You're still going to have a boundary for your own self-protection as well. So it might feel a little cold, like it's cold in my house right now. So the gray rock can feel a little cool. It's not going to be gushing with a waterfall out with, overing in any way. It's going to be simple. It's going to be simple. And one thing that I like about my gray rock, it's smooth. So
Mm.
it's not going to be abrasive. Gray rocking does not need to be abrasive. We coach you through some of that we can gray rock someone without being abrasive.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we can be soft and gray rock at the same time. So
Mhm.
I hope that that's helpful. I love that we get
Yeah.
to go back and forth with one another on that.
Mhm. Thanks for that, a show and tell of your gray rock.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. All right. So, did you all come up with a situation that has hurt you? What are your approaches? Distance, shutting down.
Mm. So shutting down may not be effective. I'm wondering how that helps you, or does it help you? Does it create more harm? Sometimes our responses can create harm when someone hurts us. And I think, and when I think of the word shutting down, um, it's different than detaching, right? Shutting down is just kind of, I imagine, slumped shoulders, kind of caving in, looking down, becoming less of a person than I want to be,
Mm.
which is harmful. So I think there's a healthy way to detach from somebody who hurts you and is harmful towards you without losing yourself. And that's really what we're going to be working on in the group.
It is. Okay, speaking up with, I see a lot of different responses. Thank you, everyone. You help one another. This is Leslie's public page. So, we always remind you to be thoughtful about what you type in. But yes, I just love how you encourage one another. And so, Susan, how do you feel about maybe doing a little bit of a role play here before we get to some questions?
Sure.
All right. So, how about if I kind of come at you a little bit? Are you willing to show
Okay.
our listeners about different ways that you could respond
Okay.
to
This is a
something?
how could you respond tutorial. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, you up for that? Do you all think that that would be helpful? Would you appreciate so that you don't shut down? Would you appreciate some ideas about what you could say? All
And
right.
we have not planned this. We did not practice this. So this is impromptu. I have no idea what Leanne's going to say here.
Yes, and me too. But I'm in it. Okay, I'm seeing some yeses. All right, so here's the deal. This time of year, this comes up a lot. Why, Susan, are you always interrupting me? You never listen to what I want to say. It's all about you.
Just a little tutorial, ladies. I wouldn't say this, but I'm taking a breath, right? Because even though this is not a real situation, that kind of hits me, right? I feel taken aback. I'm going to take a breath. Wow. I didn't have any idea, Leanne, that you were feeling that way. I do not intend to make you feel that. And it matters to me that you're feeling like I make it all about me. I don't want to go there with you. And I'm so sorry that you feel that way. And I will do better at giving more space for you, especially during this stressful time. What do you got going on in your life these days?
Well, more than you could care to imagine or think about, because you've obviously shown me, you're just like doing all of this I will and I won't and I am and I'm not stuff. And it really bothers me, really bothers me. And then
Mm,
I'm trying to have a conversation with you and you just don't listen. I don't even know what to think anymore. I don't know what's going on with me, actually.
mm. Yeah, I'm listening now. I'm hearing you. What do you need most from me?
Well, now I don't know what to say. You're really going to listen. So
I'm listening.
you're really not going to interrupt me right now. I have got something I really need to tell you.
Tell me.
Well, I have some ideas too. That I'd like to share. And when you're so quick to interrupt and give me your ideas, I feel very unsafe and I don't know what to do about it. I don't even know how to speak out of that pain because, like, I think I'm just really hurt.
I didn't know you were feeling that, Leanne. I'm so thankful that you were willing to say that to me so that we can bring healing to our relationship. So I want to hear your ideas. You always have great ideas. And maybe I was so excited about my own that I cut you off and didn't listen well, but I do want to listen well.
Well, thank you. To really have this be an engaging conversation, could we table this for tomorrow? So I can really give some thought about how it is I want to say some things to make sure that I honor you. And you know what? It would give you an opportunity to do the same. How do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, but if you need to wait, let's prepare. What do you think about lunch tomorrow?
I think that would be great. Thank you. Let's do it.
All right. So I don't know if you noticed this, but I think Leanne started to have a hard time coming back at me because I was trying to de-escalate all the time, taking a step down to de-escalate the conversation. And when I'm de-escalating, I think did you feel that as well?
I did. And it's interesting, as much as I love Susan, and this isn't a real right scenario. Susan doesn't interrupt me. And, but I love that. Oh my gosh, this is the exact very conversation I had 2 days ago. I'm seeing that in the chat.
Mm.
Okay, friends, this is where watching somebody navigate it in a way perhaps that was a little bit differently than what you would have done or experienced in your home, you could find it to be helpful. So what did you experience? Yeah, so when Susan acknowledged and validated me, when she took a breath, and Susan, I don't even know if you did this, but when you acknowledged that you needed a hot minute to gather yourself because it was activating for you, it even helped me. It helped me to realize, ooh, how I'm impacting you with my words. is a
Mhm.
deal. And we're highly sensitive, to these topics because we coach around it, we live it. And, the Lord has impressed upon us the power of healthier communication. And it still was activating. It still touches the space in us, the amygdala, right? You can remember this from today, right? The amygdala, the reptilian brain, our rolling prefrontal cortex, all of these things. Friends, you are body, mind, soul, and spirit. And our Heavenly Father wants you to learn to respond wisely when others come at you, because others will come at you. We live in a sinful world, and there's a lot of hurts out there, and there's a lot of harm out there. Who will you be when it comes at you? What did you notice? What did you notice? Would love to hear. What did you notice between Susan and I, friends?
Mhm. Could you do one mother and daughter-in-law, please? We might be able to. We're running short on time.
We
I do
are.
have to end at 1 o'clock today.
Me too. Me too. All right. Me too. Do you want to I love that. We'll see if we can get to another role play before we're done. But I was going to pull up, ladies, we do want to bring you so much value. Okay, look, I'm seeing doing one with a narcissist, mother, daughter, all the things. Ladies, if this is intriguing for you, again, I will encourage you, go to this link because this is something that we regularly do in our group coaching programs. If the women that we are coaching want it, okay? We help them walk into real situations with real people, right? This was a simulated thing. Imagine if you had a group of 15 women witnessing you getting the help and the support that you want so you can have empowering conversations that spiral up your relationships as opposed to pull them down. This is what we do in Empowered to Change. Week by week, you're going to spend 90 minutes in a group coaching live Zoom group. And then, I don't know about you, Susan, but I always recommend to my women that then in the week in between when we meet, you spend 90 minutes with the material.
Mhm.
So you've got to, I always encourage 180 minutes of focused work, because here's the deal, friends. You will not change if you don't want to change, and you will not change if you don't practice.
Mhm.
I had to say this. Okay, I'm going to just fess up. I had to say this to my husband this week. Okay, I've been married almost 40 years, and it has, some days are wonderful and others are wild and woolly. Okay, just they're plain old wild and woolly and hard. Okay. And so we're working on our communication. We're trying, even at our age, we're trying to mature and grow up in our communication. And I point blank had to tell him, you're not going to learn to communicate wisely if you don't practice communicating wisely. If you keep communicating in destructive ways, you will keep communicating in destructive ways. You got to shift it. And if there's a pattern that needs reprogramming, the most powerful way you can do that is with accountability and with other women who want to do the same thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm just going to pause there for just a minute and let you breathe that in, friends.
Mhm.
You got to practice.
Yes, practicing. And so you're coming up with all these scenarios, do one with a narcissist, do one mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, whatever it is. In group coaching, you bring your own scenario. We
That's right.
role play your very exact scenario. And you get to play whichever part you want or both, right? We have lots of opportunities where you join up with a partner and you get to hear yourself say these words in a safe place so that you can practice, you can train yourself before it gets to that heated moment with your very difficult other person in your life, that you are letting your mind kind of sort through it and the feelings come up in a safe place where you have time and space to deal with it.
Oh, Susan, I love that you brought that up because, we could do all kinds of, little practice sessions, but they're not as authentic. right? And so for us to be a very good service to you, jump in our group coaching program. This is where you're going to get, the juice that is going to be worth the squeeze in your relationships so that you can show up differently. And I see we've got a question or two here.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, we've got just a few minutes left, right? I think my clock is a little off. We've got 5 minutes. You need to hop off, and I do too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to, before I even go to a question and read it, I just want to affirm the women who are here. Thank you for your trust and confidence in sharing your stories and even making some declarations like you're wanting to work on your consistency. Congratulations. I just want to honor that. That's a gift that you can give right back to Jesus this year, this Christmas, for him. All right. Can people harm us without necessarily having an intention to harm us, but they're reacting to the pain in their own lives, Susan?
Absolutely. That's that lack of self-awareness, lack of knowing themselves well, lack of unprocessed hurt and harm in their own lives can certainly come out. You've all heard that phrase, hurt people, right? It happens all the time. And the question we have for you is, do you want to be that person who hasn't learned to process their own pain and to get to the place where they're not harming themselves or harming others due to that pain?
Yeah. So great. So Susan, on YouTube, thank you, YouTube, for submitting your question as well. There was a question, will there be a way for those people who can't afford the 6-month journey to access it somehow, even if just a small portion of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we do these lives for you at no cost to you. There are a lot of free resources you can access if you go to leslievernick.com. She is very generous with what she gives. So those are the small pieces you can get. But unfortunately, unless you're part of this group, a registered member of our groups, you won't be able to access that or experience any of that. It is something that is really special. 15 women per group, right? So groups are filling up. We do have some spaces still, but I imagine as we move towards January, those are going to fill up because people are starting to think about what they want 2025 to look like, what change they want to begin to implement. And I saw somebody else had put, is there a small step than signing up for a 6-month group? I know that sounds like a commitment. It is a commitment, half a year commitment. Right? But I think it will be life-changing. There's something, as I said, so precious when you get to know women over 6 months, that when you engage with each other and each other's stories, big changes can happen. So yes, it is an investment, but I believe one that's going to pay off.
Indeed. And, our learning and our growth comes in layers. And so every week that we meet together grows us into the next week and into the next week. And so the power of a live coaching group where you're with, other women who have the same goals, to be empowered to change the patterns, to change the responses, to move from unwise into wisdom in our communication, in our interactions, in our self-awareness, and in our other awareness, and in our awareness of God. So powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful.
So as I speak into our last question, maybe just put in the chat, what's been most powerful for you so far today? What are your takeaways from this time? I hope that we've given you something practical today that you can bring when you're feeling hurt or harmed in your relationships. Yeah. So the last question, I think, came earlier in our time together. Someone's feeling hurt, but how do we respond to that? So I hope that we've given you some tools to regulate your emotions, some things to think about in terms of communication, but also the mindset of how do you want to engage with this other person? Take some discernment. What kind of responses do you typically get from this person matters, right? And so ultimately, I think there's a lot of self-care that has to happen when we're hurt, and going to the Lord for that safety and security and loving care.
Indeed. So powerful. Well, Susan, we are at the top of the hour.
We are.
We are here. And so, yeah, we may do some more role plays. Thank you for that. We're glad that that was helpful. You can join us tomorrow at noon Eastern Time. How do I hold it together even when I feel like I am falling apart? My kids see me upset. Hey, I think I'm on that one. So you could join me. I think I am. I would love to see you tomorrow afternoon as we talk about that amazing topic. I believe we also have another one on Wednesday coming up. So we are going to be chatting in the days to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll catch you all hopefully later this week, where we'll have more lives coming to you. Thanks for being here with us. I hope you are able to go to leslievernick.com/change and just check out the group times and the information to see if that might be a good fit for your 2025. We start in January. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.